The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
First of all, I want to ask you liberal Democrats a question. I'm very serious about this. Why do you hate freedom? Why do you hate private property rights? Why do you hate individual liberty? Why do you hate our Constitution? Why do you hate our Declaration of Independence? Think I'm being tough? I'm not being tough at all. I've just started. You obviously despise this society. Is there a better one somewhere? Liberals basically, or statists as I like to call them, but whatever they want to call themselves, have a totalitarian mindset. I've said this many times before. They insist on equality. I don't mean equality as a matter of justice and under the law, which is what the framers meant. I mean equality. That if you have a big car, why should you? If you have a big house, why should you? If your house has 3 bathrooms, why should you? Why should you? You don't need that. You don't need it. Who's decided that? Well, the statists, the liberals decided that. Oh, I see. And why should anybody suffer ever? Why should anybody fail ever? Well, people make decisions for which they are individually responsible. They do it all the time. But it's not fair. So these liberal statists, they reject the whole idea of our society because they reject human nature. And somehow they think man is so imperfect that we cannot govern ourselves. I'm not talking about government govern. I'm talking about put our pants on, take it off, put a dress on, take it off, feed ourselves, house ourselves, make decisions for our families about medical care, about saving. We're so imperfect, we're so flawed, we can't do it. And yet, somehow, through the electoral process, we're able to elect a relative handful of fellow Americans. We know precious little about their backgrounds, their competence, their private lives, what they say when nobody's listening. We have very little information about them. But somehow, if we call the guy a president or a vice president or a Speaker of the House or majority leader or a Supreme Court justice or congressman or a senator, somehow they're more perfect than the rest of us. Somehow they not only can make decisions about our health care, they can make decisions about everybody's health care. How so? I don't know. We have a president of the United States who's chosen to never participate in the free market capitalist system. Never, ever. And yet now he rules over it. We have a president of the United States whose only success is as a demagogue, where he trashes his opponents, whether he's running for Congress or the state Senate or the U.S. Senate or President, where he lies and he deceives in a serial fashion. He gets elected, and somehow, he's qualified to run everything. He's qualified to rewrite the Constitution, like the Second Amendment. How did that happen? I don't know. I don't know. So what's going on here? Well, talk and talk and talk about tax increases on the rich. In America now, we're supposed to despise people who actually achieve the American dream. We're supposed to despise people who follow the law, who follow the rules through hard work, through their own intelligence, maybe long hours away from their families, who invest everything they have, many of whom started at very modest means, have become successful. Now suddenly, if they don't contribute 40% of their income, and it's closer to 50% now with Obamacare and all the other rules, if they don't contribute 50% of their income to Obama, to the Senate, to the Congress, to the massive bureaucracy, somehow That's unfair. Unfair to whom? Unfair to whom? I don't know about you folks who actually pay taxes like me. Barack Obama didn't do anything to help me become who I am. Did he help you? No. And yet, like the mob, they have their hands in our pockets. They're the first ones there. So what's happened? A lot of people talk about what's happened to our country. I'm going to tell you what's happened to our country. This isn't only a financial disaster, it is a constitutional disaster. And that's the point. Once the government became unmoored, the federal government, from the federal constitution, it's become this, an insatiable Leviathan monster. It can't stop. You heard Obama, and boy, is it getting more and more painful to listen to him. As a matter of fact, I don't even think I'm going to watch the inauguration. That's me. I can't stand it anymore. And that's how I choose to cope. You heard what he said. They got their massive tax increase. And by the way, many of you who are not earning over $400,000 a year, you're going to get whacked. As I've said over and over and over again, it's not about the rich. It's about you. You. He hasn't gotten enough, and he wants more. Why? Because this isn't about economics or balancing budgets or revenue to pay for deficit spending and printing money. There's no connection whatsoever to tax revenue and what this man's doing in the White House. No connection between what he's doing and the Democrat Party's doing and their spending. None. None. We're unmoored from the Constitution. The issue isn't what can the government do. The issue is what can't the government do. They've been pushing for this for a century. For a century. You see, folks, the only thing that stands between us and tyranny is our Constitution. And the limits it places on Barack Obama and Harry Reid and, yes, John Boehner and the Supreme Court and all the rest of them. Well, for the most part, they're gone. They're gone. Now, each and every one of us who's self-sufficient, who works for a living, and that's most of us, by the way. Most of us work for a living. Most of us are not unemployed. Most of us are self-sufficient, take care of our families, take care of ourselves, pay for the food on our table, the clothing on our back, and the roof over our heads. The vast majority of Americans still do that. Well, most of us should resent to our core what's going on around here. Obama's attacking us. He's attacking our employers. He's attacking our savings, our pensions, our health care. He's attacking our lifestyle. He's attacking our liberty and our private property rights. He's attacking our unalienable rights. No president has this power under the Constitution. No Congress has the power to do what this Congress keeps doing under the Constitution. And why am I the only one talking about this? As far as I know, they keep meeting in secret. They keep putting these big bills together, whether it's Obamacare, whether it's the stimulus, whether it is, yes, money for the Hurricane Sandy victims. And I'm going to get to that in a moment, too. Not the victims who need help, but the political hacks who use every occasion to steal money from the rest of us. This government is completely out of control. These politicians are completely out of control. This is not America. This is not a constitutional republic. It's something else. There's a professor, a law professor from Georgetown, and I'll get to him later too. I'll get to this buffoon later, who wrote in the New York Slimes on December 30th, give up the Constitution. Well, folks, they already have. FDR rejected it. Before him, Woodrow Wilson rejected it. We've got columnists who've rejected it. with Time Magazine, the Washington Post, the New York Times, they've all rejected it. Why? Because they think that we can have a benevolent dictatorship. That's why. I'm going to tell you the truth. When they say government is broken, they don't mean it's because politicians aren't complying with the Constitution. They mean we need authoritarianism. We need somebody to make decisions for all the rest of us. To do good. In the public interest, of course. This is what they mean to provide us. This is what they mean to bring us. This fiscal cliff discussion, what happened? The Republicans sold their soul to a president who would make Karl Marx and Saul Alinsky proud. A president who pretends to speak for the middle class and to represent the middle class while he's trying to destroy the middle class. He resents the middle class. He resents this entire society. That's why he's not done. He's going to push the envelope. Whether it's the debt limit, more spending, more government, whether it's the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment, or for that matter, any amendment. This president means business.
Mark Levin.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.